I've felt so alone for so long. Thank you. I'm not the master teacher. I'm a student of the master teacher. So Ken, all the student teachers, I thank you. We thank you too. But that point of feeling alone, it's not, it's actually something that you have to experience and overcome. The word alone, if you really look at it phonetically, is all one. And that's where you're aiming to go to be all one, as in one voice, one vibration. However, there's an isolation that takes place once you start to walk on this path. And it can be a bit lonely at that time because you are transforming and you can't really be around certain vibrations and certain people because you're now raising your consciousness and your vibration. You can't go to certain places anymore. You can't really entertain certain things anymore that are nonsensical or like low vibrational. So people don't get you or understand where you're coming from, and your eyes are open, your real eyes, right? So you see things differently, you think differently because your mind is now on a higher consciousness in terms of your connection and vibration. You start to tap into your other powers, your other senses. So if you're an empath, you're going to feel things more. You're going to see the world because to be like the terms they use, like the being that people call God, because it's really you. To be that being, you can't see suffering, injustice, pain and suffering around the world and not be compassionate, because one of the attributes of this being is supposed to be love, right? So that love that you have, we call it ashuk, divine love, because divine love is unconditional. And so you start to become isolated when you're now not able to do the things you used to do that were putting you on low vibration. So even just like the words you use, you start to look and hear things differently. You know, you start to think, wow, like all of these things are connected. So that loneliness is not a, it's not a bad one. It's a journey. It's something that you have to grow from. And many people will tell you that even in a crowd, they feel lonely because you're tapping into your inner being, the real you. That's the real you that feels, because remember that the so-called five senses that you have, which is to smell, to taste, to see, to hear, to touch, these are all only one, but it's been exaggerated. So that deals with your ability to be aware, yeah, awareness to touch things and feel and know. But you have deeper senses that go into your telepathy, yeah, clairvoyance, your intuition, your psychometry. Now those are the powers that you start to develop. And when you, if you manage to get your barothry gland back, okay, there will be much more heightened. You'll be able to have full access to your being, your brain as a supreme being, and then you're tapped in more to the higher consciousness. We are now, but the more you develop, the more you're going to be in connection and in tune with that. So yeah, I know that feeling, been through it. In fact, if you read chapter 4 of our book, the spiritual fast track in your spiritual and conscious journey, that actually, it's almost like there are different phases you go through. And that one where you cut off from everyone, you go into yourself, you start to really isolate yourself. And if you think about it, most of the religious people that you know of, like before they receive this higher consciousness or spiritual information, they isolated themselves and go into a state where, like, go into a cave, or they seclude themselves. They go somewhere where it's peace and quiet, and to just tune into themselves. and tap into the mental reservoir on a higher conscious level, and then they receive affirmation, or some will say inspiration, and then they come back and they share this message. You know, Moses had to go to the mountain. We know some of these stories are fabricated or distorted, but the point I'm making is that, yeah, that alone that you say you feel, that's natural, but don't allow it to overwhelm you, because it's growth, and you just have to be around like-minded people, other people that can relate and vibrate and be able to tell you that, you know, you're not alone, because we are all one. And that's what we're all aiming to do when we start to be able to come together under that type of vibration, under ashuk, or divine love, as we say, yeah?